Welcome to this video about the care duties on promote individual well-being. Please note that we have other videos about this topic on the Sky website, alongside with many other resources and handout with some key messages and reflective questions that will support to embed the learning. Today, I'm going to explore with June what is the duty of promote individual well-being and what is individual well-being. My name is Carmen and here with me is June. So the Care Act tells us that we have the legal duty to promote individual well-being. This is the key duty on the Care Act and it's a primary duty. What this means is that before anything else, we need to think about, are we promoting individual well-being? This duty applies to everybody in the local area. It's what is called a general responsibility. So the person doesn't need to have needs for care and support or eligible needs or be a carer or anything else. As long as they reside in the local area, they have the right and the local authority the duty to promote the individual well-being. Now, let's explore what individual well-being is. June, how do you understand individual well-being?
For me, individual well-being is that you need to see me as a person, not a diagnosis or a case. I am a person, and your practice needs to be holistic. It needs to be person-centered, and it needs to be strength-based. So that's sort of my top line on what I think about individual well-being. And now I would like to give you an example of how I had experiences which, during any assessment of need, any assessment or any service delivered, was not at all based on me as an individual. I would like to give you a poem which I wrote not that long ago, maybe about 10 years ago, I don't know, perhaps less. And it was about my early experiences, which embodied who I was. My identity came from that, and actually nobody ever discussed this part of my identity, which was really central to who I was. So if I go and talk about the poem now, I'm going to just read it. So, sun hot, rain warm, not cold ever. Color, flowers, clothes, everywhere color, always warm, people warm, warm family. Happy, happy, happy. I am lovely. I am important. I am loved. Fog, smog, cold, grey everywhere. Grey skies, grey people, grey clothes, grey food, grey looks, never smiling and always cold. Can't get warm, so cold. And the cold people all around. I'm scared. Help me, Mum, Dad. But you can't because you are scared too. People say, you don't belong here, go back. But I do belong here. I'm part of you. Love me. I'll be good. What do I have to do to please you? I'll change. Tell me what I have to do. I'll change. I'm trying to please you, all of you. Please love me. You don't want to. You can't. It's me. I am not good enough. I'm worthless. You can't love me. I can't love me. I want to go home. Where is home? I am lost. I have lost me for so many, many, many years. Growing up, growing down. Fear, confusion, madness. For so many, many years. Growing up, but all the time growing down. That was my experience of coming as an immigrant to this society, this country, at the age of 9, and being treated completely as if I didn't exist really as a person. And although I wasn't actually being assessed for needs for quite a long time after that, that had already formed who I was. That was never explored with anyone, and in fact, I grew down into a quite severe mental illness after that during the next 9 years of my life, and so it was never talked about. I was visibly different, but nobody ever wanted to talk about the impact. And so I'm saying that actually that was an important part. That for me was about identity. And if you lose who you are, if you lose yourself and nobody talks to you about who you are, and they really treat you as a completely different person, even when they're assessing and treating. And they never got to the core issues for me. And so quite a few years later, I was like incubating this experience of oppression, discrimination, not being a good enough person, being, I don't know, second best or even third best or whatever. Excuse me. You have to remember that at that time there was a lot of open, overt discrimination and oppression. So we saw things on doors which say no dogs, no Irish, no coloured. And, if you were looking for accommodation, you knew not to go there because you weren't be welcome. So this is a 9-year-old trogging around with my parents trying to make sense of this. And, we had statements which were being said at the government level at the time, which actually fed people's paranoia about who we were and about their fears about difference. So all that was a huge package inside me. A very quiet, accommodating child, trying, as I said, to please and not really being able to. So to me, that actually was not well-being, and was not. Nobody had attempted to address any of that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, June, for sharing that. I did a struggle for a second there, trying to talk and not cry. You really, really reached me, and gosh, there is so much in there. I'm a bit unsure how to unpack it, but I'm just gonna pick up on some things, not necessarily saying the rest is not important, because obviously it's the whole package what is so impactful here. Yeah. The first thing I would like to highlight is, obviously you have talked about that experience, and the poem is fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic about that experience as an immigrant who's not accepted and is not listened to. But the reality is, every time you were talking, I couldn't help on my head extrapolating and comparing that with a person with needs, a person who is subject to abuse or neglect, a carer, and how absolutely equal those circumstances are. Yeah. So how in your case with the immigration is the color and the where you're coming from, and how when we're facing a person with needs or a carer, or what we see is a problem and a package. Yeah. And we forget in a lot of occasions, I'm not saying always, thankfully, but we forget the person, we forget the past, we forget. Yeah. So you talk about assessment of needs, and really it's about every single interaction, isn't it? It's about every time somebody calls and talk to you. Is you're not a case, you're not a problem, you're not a need, you're not a diagnosis, you are a person who has a life. And the Care Act, I always thought the Care Act defines well-being at having 9 areas. And the areas are quite broad. I mean, they do encompass an awful lot of things about an individual. And now I always thought it's great that it's so broad. And now listening to your poem, I was thinking, it's all in there. Call different things, is the relationships, is the feelings, is the health and mental situation, is the values, is the beliefs, is the relationships, family, friends, is the education, is where you fit in life, is the community, is the government, is everything. And how do you fit? And how you talk about identity, you talk about who you were or who you are. How often do you face a social care interaction, an interaction with a social care practitioner, where you feel that they actually talking to you as a person with all those dimensions, where they actually considering that this is who I am, this is my identity? What's the experience for you on that?
Well, I have had experiences which have been better than others. But I'm not sure even then that the practitioner was taking into account who I was as a whole person. They were they were probably already thinking, does, do her needs fit our criteria for needs and things? And actually, I have at times been an educator of social work students, and I would say to them, put your pad down, put your pen down and listen, really listen. Let the person take charge of that situation. So, yes, you've got certain things, you've got forms to fill in, but unless you actually start with listening to who that unique person is, your values and beliefs, if they don't actually match the person, because you're doing this job, you need to put them aside and you need to accept that the person has values and beliefs. And sometimes when people are talking to you, you think, is that true? Is that right? You're making a judgment. And there's a saying which I used to say to students and other people in social care who I would be either working with or experiencing a process, is suspend disbelief. So actually, every time that you're going, yeah, suspend disbelief for that time. It is fundamental. What the person is saying is their perception. It's what's important to them, and you have a job to do. But as much as you can work within the framework of what the person believes. Then I think that you won't be having a battle as such. I think you will actually be coming alongside the person. And that then gives the respect, the dignity to the person you're working with. So it's experiencing empathy, it's being empathic to the person, but it is also listening almost so hard that you are part of that situation with the person, but you are professional, so there's a distance to be maintained. But if you actually suspend disbelief and say, well, yes, that person sees the world through these sorts of eyes, and I have to listen to that, and I have to take that into consideration while making my judgments, which I have a duty to do.
Yeah.
So
And I think that's and we're gonna explore in another video how the interaction between the social care practitioner and the individual can support that. I am gonna close this video now in emphasizing very strongly that as a practitioner, as a social care practitioner, my primary legal duty is to promote your individual well-being. What that means is that if I am focusing on my forms, as you said, if I am focusing in which needs are eligible or not, if I am focusing on services rather than focusing on your individual well-being and promoting it, and to promote it, I need to understand what individual well-being is for you first. Then, if I'm doing those other things rather than promoting your individual well-being as a primary duty, I'm failing complying with the Care Act. So, amazingly interesting. Thank you very much, June. And please, everybody, listen to the next video where June and myself will be exploring how the dynamic between a practitioner and an individual can ensure that the individual well-being is promoted and firstly acknowledged and know. Thank you very much, June.
thank you.